Jessica.
Yes. Well, I go by Jessy.
Jessy.
You can call me Jessy.
Jessy.
Yeah, thank you.
Normally, I don't ask people's last names.
I know, in this case.
But in this case.
Do I look at the camera or look at you? I don't
Look at
even
the
know.
camera.
Okay.
The camera's
in
better.
this case, no, because I saw Mark Horvath's card, and I was looking at my own name on a business card, and I still have that, by the way, because it was just bizarre. It was very bizarre.
Yeah.
But yes, my grandfather came from Hungary. I went through Ellis Island. His dad made a lot of tools. He did a lot of masonry, like in the terms of like tool building. They brought a suitcase and brought the kids, and they ended up here. They came from Ohio. My dad was actually adopted, and they lovingly adopted my dad, who refuses to see anyone else as his parents, and my grandparents for sure.
So you are Jessy Horvath.
And I am Jessy Horvath.
Good last name.
Yes, it is.
Good last name.
It is.
So you're out here homeless.
Yes, I am.
Tell me about it.
Yes, I am. I claim Santa Cruz and San Jose as home, Northern California, and up there's a big push of people saying we're houseless, not homeless, and a little bit of that is true. I think there are some people who are out on the street who kind of exploit their own misfortune. They make a big deal about the fact, like, oh, I'm homeless. Well, truth be told, like, I'm relative. I'm 34. But starting on the street, I was in my late 20s, and like good health, and it's not impossible to survive in the outdoors, like it just, it works out, and I try not to, I try to still, I've been able to grow a lot as a person. I'm not saying that everyone should be homeless either, but for me personally, I was on a really bad, disastrous road, and by avoiding that, I've grown in ways that I didn't know I would. Is, I guess, the silver lining of it as well, because you see people at their extremes. People are, super. You see people at the most embarrassing of embarrassed, and the proudest of the proud. And you see when somebody goes and does something kind to someone else on the street, it's an amazing thing. And when someone does something cruel, it's the same. So it's
homelessness changed me, and where it changed me is prior to homelessness, I had a great job in the television industry, and I was never happy. And then after homelessness, you give me a ham sandwich and a bag of Doritos, and I'm homeless. I mean, and then I'm happy.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's very true. And I mean, I come from like a pretty well-to-do family, but at the same time, neither of my parents are too proud. They're both Midwest, down in the dirt people when they started, and so I kind of had that backing me, but still, some of the things like for me, my thing, I think everyone that's homeless has something that their pride cannot handle, and it's usually something weird. Mine is a shopping cart. I cannot push a shopping cart. I can't push a shopping cart I'll die. I will die if I push a shopping cart, Pops. I can't do it. That's too much of a knock on my pride. But some of the other things, that I recycle. I cash in cans and things in LA here out at the beach. There's plenty of them in the summer, and I make enough to support myself and help out my friends. Just by doing that. But digging in trash cans, no problem. Pushing a shopping cart, no go.
So I'm the same way. Back when I was homeless, I remember, in fact, I wrote about the time when I first had to push a buggy. For those that don't know, we call them buggies.
I can't do it.
And there was a moment where I had to get stuff from point A to point B, and I had no other choice to get stuff to my storage unit except push a buggy. And I remember going over the curbs. It was like really hard. And my pride sank because now I had to accept I was homeless.
It's the worst.
I had to finally say, yes, I am on the street.
And there's people, like looking at you, and you're kind of blockading traffic, and you know it.
Oh my gosh. And then there was a woman with her
can't do
baby
it.
carriage, and she turned it around to go over the curb. And I went, oh, that's how you do it. And, then so
You're
at least
learning
it was
from,
easier. And that's what we do when we're out here. We adapt.
Yeah.
But going back
You
to
do,
something you were saying earlier, that, people kind of, homelessness sucks.
It does. There's so many parts of it. Like, and I say that me and my boyfriend, who I've been with for quite a few years now, but we traveled down the coast together. But I say we're some of the most spoiled homeless people that we know, and it's because we're good to people, and we're making like conscious efforts in our young little lives to still be positive reinforcement to a lot of like kids like around. I mean, just because you're down and out doesn't mean that there isn't someone around you that doesn't need help. Like there's still work to be done. And if you let yourself go on those things and you make it all about yourself, or you make it all about your whatever, it doesn't, and that's anywhere you are in life, and so because of that, we have better days, we have worse days, but we do have a lot of friends. We have a lot of close friends. We have people that on our bad days kind of help us out, and the universe always has us on lock. Like,
well, my first stop is to see Kenneth over here, always.
Yeah.
I have friends out here too. Now I'm going to go walk down the boulevard and see a bunch of friends. And we met last time, and I can't forget your last name.
It's true. It is true. That is one. No, it's pretty crazy. It's crazy.
So how'd you end up here? How'd you end up homeless?
I went through childhood totally fine. I love the shit out of my parents. I haven't talked to them in years. It's pretty awful. But it just family situation, nothing abusive or nothing like that. Just like we just got really codependent on each other for a small family, and I went off. I'm only child, and I had medical problems when I was a baby. I have hydrocephalus, which is a brain condition, and I had a boatload, let's say, of operations between the ages of like 2 and 4, and survived that. And then I kind of got overly protected for a long time, but I made it all the way, and I'm lucky as hell. I went to college. I have a BA from UC Santa Barbara, which I'm very proud of, and
so why are you still here?
I'm a
You're
drinker. I was
intelligent?
also a drinker, right? But I also I self-destructive. It was like everything was handed to me a little bit. I mean, I worked my butt off for what I have, but at the same time, I always had people spoiling me, and like putting the spotlight on me and putting me up on a pedestal and all that stuff. And I just kept faltering, and I still don't know what the answer to all that is, but I couldn't do it, and I just kept nosediving, and getting some amazing job, and then doing well for like a year, and then all of a sudden just nosedive, and drinking, being an alcoholic.
And you said mental illness was also part of it?
Yeah, I definitely, I've been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. I mean, they've thrown everything at me, bipolar 2, like whatever, and for a girl who's had a whole bunch of brain surgeries when she was a baby, that's not strange.
Yeah.
Whichever way you look at it, it's not bizarre. It's not like a shock, but it seemed like everyone around me when I was going through it, when I was like a teenager into my early 20s, everyone else was shocked that I would have like mental issues that I was still dealing with. It was like, no, but you're healed. Like you survived. You're a survivor. But I just had a lot of trouble, and they put me on a bunch of rogue medications, and that was all bad. But
so
I just started drinking, and I just shit showed. Honestly, I just nosedove, and kind of just worked through all the possible things. I've been to a bunch of different rehabs. Been to about 10 rehabs. Been to mental institutions. I've been 5150, like the whole gamut.
So how you doing now?
I'm doing. I definitely go. I go longer stretches now without that nosedive. Like I don't, kind of by ducking off the radar and out of that spotlight, I can say like it I can't say I'm treating my depression and all of that like responsibly. However, it's given me a little bit more space, and the demands. I mean, growing up in Silicon Valley and around all the tech boom and all of that, all my best friends work for Google and medical companies and all this stuff, and very high profile. And the pressure, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it at all. And without that, it's like I can breathe. I love art. I love music. I'm able to kind of create things now, and
well, people don't understand.
But it's not a better way of life. But it has given me a lot of perspective on the pressures that were put on me and my friends, and that whole society growing up. All of those pressures took way more of an impact than I would have imagined, and I wouldn't have known until they were gone.
So people don't understand that people use drugs or drink to escape pain. And
self-medication.
Yes, homelessness adds to that pain.
Then it just gets folded and folded and folded again and again, and it gets all messy. It gets all messy, but everything is different. Is the other thing. Is the whole COVID situation. Everything changed a little bit, and things are starting to get back to normal, as they say now, but it's like, what was normal before? But a very wise friend of mine told me in the early, the first month, probably just about a year ago, right? The first month that the whole COVID shut down, and no one knew what was going on. People were panicking and all that stuff. And he said, he came to me frustrated because he was dealing with his business that he owns. And he came to me and he said, you guys are luckier because you've already experienced loss.
Oh my gosh.
You've already experienced loss. You know what it's like. He said, we don't know. He's a very, very wise dude, very wise man. And but he said, we don't know what that's like. He's living in Marina Del Rey in a sky-rise townhouse. And he's like, we don't know what that loss is like. We think cutting back our such and such bill is travesty, And he says, there is freedom in having lost already.
Well, it's perspective.
Just freedom.
Nobody escapes pain. Nobody escapes suffering.
Especially, and the whole COVID thing is a perfect example of that. That's something that has affected everyone on all scales, no matter what. And honestly, we already, as far as the stuff and the money struggle and the conformity and non-conformity, we have already experienced that a lot. And so in my friend's words, he was like, you don't have to waste time on it anymore. And I do feel that way. It's been surreal a lot of times, especially here in Venice, a couple of times during the COVID shutdown. And it's like, we're just wandering around, and I mean, it's not like it hasn't affected us,
it's been good and bad. There's been some good parts and some
it
bad
has
parts.
But it's allowed some things to move forward. I think a lot of the housing, getting people into houses, especially older or people with health problems, that was huge. I had some friends, oh my God, just some stubborn, you're not going to tell some hardcore OG dude, 60-year-old dude who's been on the street for 40 years of his life in Venice, California. You're not going to look that guy in the eye and be like, sit down in this, nursing home bed and follow our schedule, and we get to pick the TV channel in the afternoons. It doesn't, that doesn't work for them, at all. And this whole thing did cut a lot of the red tape and the paperwork and everything.
So
and
people got into housing faster.
A lot more people, some of those
now we got to get
high priority.
And get our
and the next one is
behind us in.
Yeah, well, he's one of the stubborn ones. He's one of the stubborn ones for sure, and he deserves to be. He deserves. He has a right to be. Yeah. He does. I'm a young gun, man. I got some time. I got some. I can figure it out.
We need to get out of here, everybody.
But we do.
Yeah.
It's cracking in. Yeah.
If you had 3 wishes, what would they be?
3 wishes. What would they be? I would wish. I don't know. I would wish that initial phone call I have to make to get back in contact with my mother was over with. And that would be all 3 of my wishes.
That's a tough one.
That's really it. Maybe I would wish for I don't know, a little bit more some volume control on the street so I could practice music.
When I stop recording, I'll show you a photo of me homeless that was taken right over there. Cool. And at the time, for many, many years, I didn't talk to my mom. Yeah. And I just spent the last bunch of years taking care of her.
It's that connection back to like my old life that it's like I can't blame them for not knowing what my lifestyle is, and I don't even know what their lifestyle is now. Yeah. And it's like,
well,
and that's hard.
The call when
that's
you
the
feel
hardest.
like it.
That's the hardest.
Well, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you, Mr. Horvath.